Lamar Jackson is struggling right now, and he's struggling this season after a very hot start. And criticism, skepticism, public questioning of his play is exactly what he needs right now, because it's going to motivate him and take him to a higher level. Or if he folds and doesn't respond, that's on him. But people ran around for years coddling and covering up for Cam Newton. And Cam Newton is still in delusion. That's why as soon as Cam got back on the field after the Patriots cut him and he missed half the NFL season, he gets back on the field, makes one play, and starts yelling and screaming, I'm back, nothing's changed, because he's still in that delusional state that he's been left in because the media and the public and everybody coddles Cam. Because if there's any criticism of Cam, oh my God, you're racist.
He thinks that white people are the only people that can have a brain and realize that this is pathetic. It's a pathetic excuse for art. It's not good. It's not funny. So maybe that is Seth Rogan feeling like only white people can actually think about something and see through his bullshit. Because, of course, I'm not a white supremacist, but I thought this show was trash. Period.
TJ, being the resident white supremacist on this show, is your criticism of this coming out of, your feelings of supremacy?
So I'm told, yes, so I'm told. No, I will tell you that I think when I imagine Seth Rogen and who he is, this character of Santa is actually a pretty good representation. So I think he did a good acting job of himself. It makes a lot of sense.
For Britney, it's a bonus. She's doing a tour right now. So she's been on multiple platforms talking about the same thing. So for Dion to pick her up along the tour and say, use my platform to increase your visibility, that's a gimmick. And for him to do it in a way where he's trying to teach young men something, and that just feeds into the left, when they're talking about the feminists, actually taking over what men say, what men think, how men feel. And now she's in there telling them, this is how you get into my DM and get my attention. You have to have a blue check. And even if you have a blue check, there's a long line. So you look at Dion and his walk, and like I call him Deacon Dion, because at some point it has to match up with prime time. Prime time was the old you. Deacon Dion is the new you.
I want to be loyal to my faith in a higher power. I want to be loyal to my family that helped me. I don't want to be loyal to my skin color. And I say that not as that I have any shame or any negative feelings about my skin color. I say it because I know how surface level this is and how insignificant this actually is. And that the faith that my grandmother and 25th Street Baptist Church and my mother put in me, and the philosophies that I derive from the church and my outlook and those beliefs that I got from the church, all more important than my skin color. Who are the elect and why are they perhaps problematic?
The elect are people, not just woke, the elect are people who feel that battling differentials in power, especially white people's power, should be the center of everything that we think, everything that we like, everything that we do, all the effort that we put forth. It's all about battling power differentials. Now, all of us understand that that's important on some level, but we think of battling power differentials as one of maybe 25 things that you might think about as you go through this thing called life. But for these people, that's the center. And if you're not battling white power, so to speak, this kind of person feels that you are so wrong, you are so behind the curve, that you should be fired if you disagree, that you should be mocked on social media as a white supremacist if you disagree, that you are not fit to break bread with. And the important thing is that if you wake me up in the middle of the night, I'm talking about a white person.
I was trying to think through the logic behind this, because people who do crazy things like this, that you have to try to catch up to their logic, and boy, do you have to tie yourself in a pretzel to get there. But doesn't the expectation that Jussie Smollett, however you say his name, had actually prove the opposite of what his worldview is? Meaning this, he wanted to get a raise, he had a contract dispute at Empire. He knew, or at least expected, that if he were the victim of a violent, heinous, terrible crime, that America would rally behind him and he would get everything he wants. Is that a sign of a terribly racist place that hates gay blacks? Or is it a sign of a country that would go out, riot in the streets and say, this is unacceptable, not here, and you give this man whatever he wants?
Well, I think one thing that really needs to happen is that Christians need to reassess their relationship with the Republican Party. And what that means is we've really allowed Republican office holders to get away with telling us that they support religious liberty while really not doing much to actually protect religious liberty while in office. I'll give you an example. So I live in Indiana, and I was here when Mike Pence was our governor, and while he was vice president for President Trump, went around the nation preaching religious liberty. But while he was the governor here in Indiana, he unleashed the cancel culture using these hate crimes laws to persecute Christians by writing into Indiana law these hate crimes protections specifically for sexual behavior. And so the success of the big business cancel culture here in 2015 in Indiana led to repeated, and now we see this as endemic, where big corporations are trying to use their power to push around state legislatures run by Republicans.
Some of y'all's favorite rappers, NBA players, football players, it's like, to me, once you reach that level just of popularity, the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you want. And for me, my whole journey on here, I felt like my life almost felt like I was in Disney World, like I lived in Disney World. Like, you get to skip the line, you get privilege, like people just want to be next to you. They don't even see you as human anymore.
If you listen to what she said there, she said, sometimes I feel like I'm in Disney World, and Disney World is a place of fantasy, not reality. And one of the things or two of the things I should say, that men in particular struggle with is fantasy and reality.
We're not blessed for just some odd reason, Jason. We're blessed because of the way that we've obeyed God in our nation and understood some of the basic foundations of human life. And when the world didn't, regardless of slavery, we self-corrected. There's a reason why we self-corrected, because we weren't living true to those principles. And so it's a great thing to be a part of a system that can self-correct. And the thing is, we're not done correcting. We're still correcting so long as we keep those principles about loving God, honoring God, and treating those things that God says are valuable. And then, like you said earlier, with sanctification, we're being sanctified. Jason, you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But because of the blood of Jesus and believing in him, we are being made perfect. And one last thing on the Jussie Smollett stuff, Jussie Smollett. They say this white charade business is hilarious to me. They talk about this white charade happening with this court hearing. Jason, the people who are testifying against Jussie are black.
That's the thing I like about Mac Jones, is that Bill Belichick says, you're going to be my starter, but I'm not going to ask you to be elite. Because if you actually look at his numbers, Jace, he's pretty pedestrian and middle of the road in most of those categories.
And that's why I don't think you should go overboard on Mac Jones. Bill Belichick may get to this offseason and draft another quarterback in the first or second round or third round and challenge Mac Jones. Mac Jones, I don't even know if his ceiling will be as high as Drew Bledsoe. I'm not down on Mac Jones, but I'm just like, Bill Belichick is carrying this guy right now. And then the other point you made that I would kind of push back on is like, you took a little shot at Trevor Lawrence, like just take the incompletion and move on.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot easier to do that when you got the Patriots defense on the other side. And he's out there playing for the Jaguars, who are playing from behind a lot and whose defense isn't shutting down the opposition the way that the Patriots are. So, if Trevor Lawrence were playing for Bill Belichick, how good do you think Trevor Lawrence would look?
I'm not so sure that much better.
How tough is it for LeBron James for all his money? How tough is it? Oh my God, it's so tough being worth $500 million and all these people kissing my ass. It's very tough for me, LeBron James. I gotta pay people to put hair on the top of my head. I got people to groom my beard. Oh, it's just very tough. And they spray painted the N-word on my LA mansion when I was in Cleveland, and my servants had to clean it up before I could see it or any of my kids. Before I could even show the police, my servants cleaned it up. Oh, it's so tough. I'm like, first thing I thought of when I was in Cleveland and heard about someone spray painting my mansion, first thing I thought about was Emmett Till and his mama. It was very similar to what I was going through hearing about someone spray painting my garage door in Los Angeles, my summer home.
Yeah, I mean, so Jussie Smollett, first of all, has done a lot for my career. I actually sent him a signed copy of Hate Crime Hoax. In terms of what should happen to him, I don't disagree with you, Jason. Very often in these cases, what we see is sort of a light slap on the wrist. The charge would be something like filing a false police report. The sentence would be probation or community service. I personally feel that if you falsify a serious crime, like a sexual assault or a racial beating, you should get something close to the penalty that's associated with that crime. I mean, the Chicago Police Department spent something like $130,000 chasing down the imaginary attackers of this well-known black LGBT actor in the city. So, yeah, something across 6 counts, when you say something like a sentence of 6 months, that doesn't sound unreasonable.
I think this crime is too serious. I think if he had pulled off his hoax, it had a chance to spark racial unrest in Chicago. There's been too many of these hate crime hoaxes, and we need to send a message. I think he needs some jail time. What do you say?
I mean, if the charges that he was charged with carry with it a penalty of jail or prison, I'm fine with it. 6 months, give him enough time to think about what he did. Now, what I hope doesn't happen is that he calls up Lil Nas X and they do part 2 of Industry Baby and then turn this into even more of a fiasco, right? I hope that's not the case. But, I'm fine with it. As you said.
Let me just say this, Delano. For the first time ever, Shamika would be proud of you. You just cracked a joke that she would have cracked.